Thank you again. I'm Gary Sutton. Again, I'm going to be your moderator here for the second part of our debate here this afternoon, actually forum, excuse me, not debate, but forum. Albert Eisenberg. Is he here? Okay. Albert Eisenberg is our one questioner. On the other side, Jennifer Stefano. You've met them already this afternoon. I won't repeat their accolades, but we do have 4 other candidates here, and we're going to introduce them one at a time. First of all, Mr. Bill McSwain. Bill. Mr. Charlie Gerow. Mr. Joe Gale.
Joe Gale.
And Mr. Jake Corman. Ladies and gentlemen, again, each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer the questions as we go along. We're going to ask them to stay within that 3 minutes. I'll be the corraller at the end in case they don't, but we hope all of them will abide by that. They can see those up there. We'll have a 2-minute closing comment time at the end for each of the candidates, and let's get started. First up will be Jennifer Stefano with a question for Bill McSwain. Jennifer?
Mr. McSwain, Attorney General Josh Shapiro has overseen the highest rise in crime in the last 30 years, and we all know that a lot of that, most of that, is coming out of the city of Philadelphia, who elected George Soros-funded Larry Krasner. Now, for those of us that live in the collar counties of Philadelphia, we are now suffering from the lawlessness in that city, yet we have no power to vote out any of the people there. So as governor, what will you do for those of us who are suffering under the lawlessness in the small municipalities and towns that surround the big cities of this state?
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and it's great to be here. I'm delighted to be in this forum. And first of all, I served as the presidentially appointed United States Attorney in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, appointed by President Trump. I am the only candidate for the Republican nomination for governor who actually served in the Trump administration. I have dedicated most of my professional life to public safety. And the Eastern District of Pennsylvania covers Philadelphia, the collar counties of Philadelphia, as far west as Lancaster, and as far north as the Lehigh Valley. I was responsible for enforcing the federal criminal laws in that district. And certainly Philadelphia, as you indicated, is going through a crisis of violent crime. And I stood up very strongly, and I opposed the leaders in Philadelphia who were not enforcing the law, who were encouraging the lawlessness. I stood up strong against the district attorney, Larry Krasner, who was not enforcing the law. I stood up against the mayor. And frankly, I didn't get any help from Josh Shapiro in fighting back against the lawlessness in Philadelphia. I didn't get any help fighting against violent crime or against political corruption or fighting back against the riots in Philadelphia in the summer of 2020 and fighting back against heroin injection sites. But I took on all of those issues myself. I put violent criminals in jail. I put corrupt politicians in jail. Together with the assistant United States attorneys in my office, I stopped the riots in the summer of 2020 by charging anybody that we could identify who had torched a police car or blown up an ATM or had started a riot or tried to burn down a business along Chestnut Street or Walnut Street. I also stopped heroin injection sites from invading Pennsylvania neighborhoods. So I have a record of standing for law and order. I have a record of protecting public safety. I have a record of standing up for the law-abiding citizens, and I will bring that record to the governor's office. I will make public safety a priority. I will make sure that the police are funded and the police are supported, and I will also use the bully pulpit so the police will understand that their governor believes that they are heroes. The police are people that literally put their lives on the line for people that they don't even know. Who does that? The police do that, and our military does that. And they deserve our support, our respect, and they will get it when I'm governor.
Thank you. Albert, a question for Charlie Gerow.
Mr. Gerow.
I'm leaning forward.
Me too. In your public comments and in your campaign, you often cut a softer profile, perhaps a sunnier profile than some current Republican candidates do. The electorate is angry, and they don't like what they're seeing when they look around. How do you reconcile this, and how do you close that gap?
Well, as many of you know, I began my career working for a man by the name of Ronald Reagan. And when you think about how Ronald Reagan fought the battle for principle, I think that's a pretty good model. So I've taken on the left consistently, firmly, and winning. But I've always done it with a smile on my face, because I don't think you have to hate the other side in order to call them out on principle. I don't think you have to be nasty and vicious on a human level in order to win the public debate. In fact, I think most people reject that. They like the fact that I'm called the conservative happy warrior, because I have fought with a smile on my face, but I have been a warrior consistently, constantly, firmly. Those of you that live in the mid-state have watched me for many years on local television, taking on the left wing every single week and doing it very successfully, but never walking away angry, never walking away with hatred. And, you know, I'll tell you a quick little story. Tony May, God rest his soul, my sparring partner on the air, and I were called up to the University of Scranton a couple of years ago. And we took on some issue. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was representing the progressive left, and I was representing the conservative mainstream of America, and we really went at it. And afterwards, we were invited to dinner with the students there at the University of Scranton, and they were amazed at how we could actually get along over the dinner table. And Tony leaned over to me and he said, "They sure as heck be amazed if they knew we drove up here together tonight, wouldn't they?" Being decent, being civil, being just is not a vice. Being firm, being committed, being deliberate about the fight for our conservative values is a must, because we have to win. I'm as angry as anybody else, but simply being angry isn't enough. We have to get things done. And in order to get things done, we're going to have to build coalitions, we're going to have to bring people together, and we're going to have to successfully prosecute the fight for our values, our traditions, and the things that we know make America truly great. I'm prepared to do that. You know, you're going to have a lot of folks coming here over this weekend telling you how conservative they are. But as my dad used to say, before you tell me what you're going to do, Charlie, show me what you've done. And so the preamble to your question is exactly what I've done through the years. Fight hard for conservative principles. Win those debates. Win those fights, just as I will when I take on Josh Shapiro, because I'm fundamentally prepared to take him on face to face with a smile on mine and defeat him on the debate stage and at the polls, and to win the day for Pennsylvania and make it great once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. The next question is from Jennifer for Joe Gale. Jennifer?
Mr. Gale, can you tell me that, I think if I ask in a Republican primary if people would cut taxes, the answer is largely going to be yes. Please correct the record if it wouldn't be yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think I need to ask that. But what I do need to ask is you cannot have a tax cut without also slashing the government. So I want to know specifically, which government bureaucracy would you end when you become governor? Why would you do it, and why do you think that is significant enough to give all the working men and women of the state a tax decrease?
We need to drastically cut funds in the Department of Transportation and also the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, because clearly we don't have a revenue problem in Harrisburg, we have a cost problem. An example of that are our roads. I dodge a lot of potholes on the way to get here today. And we have the worst roads in the country, and we also lead the nation in the highest gas tax, 58 cents per gallon, which was given to us with a former Republican governor, Tom Corbett, along with the Republican majority in the state Senate and the state House. That was literally the legacy of the Corbett administration, and that let down so many conservatives that are fed up with high taxes that led to Governor Tom Wolf today, because typically an incumbent wins re-election. But in fact, Corbett and the governor of Alaska in 2014 were the only incumbent Republican governors not to be reelected because of that infamous Corbett gas tax, Act 89. So clearly we have a cost problem. And something that would help fix the roads and do it at a lower cost and at a faster pace of time is prevailing wage reform, where you open up the bid process to more independent contractors and drive down the cost. It's basic economics. It generates competition. But politicians in Harrisburg wouldn't pave their driveway at home the same way they pave a public road, because they cater to labor and trade unions. Because if all you have to do is look at their campaign finance reports, Republicans included, we have a lot of them funded by unions. And they cater to them for political expedience, and they go after money grabs from all of us. Whether it's a vehicle registration fee increase, that increased a provision of Act 89 was giving the 67 counties the ability to increase the vehicle registration fee by $5. That may not seem like a lot, but that revenue is supposed to go to fixing county roads and bridges. Well, it is a lot when you consider our high property taxes, the highest toll road in the world, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, not the country, the world, and the highest gas tax in the nation. It's endless money grabs. And you need a governor with a backbone that will hold accountable Republicans in the legislature that have let us down for decades in this state, and also not be afraid to take on unions, special interest groups, or any other lobbyists that profit from our tax dollars. And I'm a unique candidate because I've never been created by the system, and that's where I separate myself from all the others. To a certain degree, every other single candidate kisses the rings of party bosses, lobbyists, donors, and those special interest groups. From the very beginning, in my initial campaign as Montgomery County Commissioner back in 2015, I took on the Republican Party establishment swamp, and I beat them. And then I was reelected in 2019, and they had all guns out a-blazing trying to stop me, and I was reelected by an even larger margin. I never relied on the Republican Party or any other special interest groups or the establishment class. I've always been blessed to have the backing of the people, and I'll bring that to the governor's seat and actually get results and cut taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Appreciate it. Albert with a question for Jay Corman.
Mr. Corman, the Republican Party is changing. On the generic ballot, it shows that Latino voters may even be favoring Republicans, and there's exit polling that suggests that Glenn Youngkin won them over. Working people of all racial groups are shifting more towards Republicans over the last few cycles, while higher educated whites have moved away from Republicans towards Democrats. How are you anticipating this change? What have you done to build the Big Tent and win over new Republican voters?
Sure. It's a great question because it's a very important question. But before I get to it, let me just spend a moment. It's been a really tragic week in Pennsylvania. We had two Pennsylvania State Police troopers killed in Philadelphia by a drunk driver. Last night, a horrific incident in Lebanon County where 3 officers were shot, 1 killed. And it's just important we take a moment. Bill talked about it, the freedom that they provide us by the security that they give us by going out and protecting people they don't know. And so I think it's important that we acknowledge those men and women in uniform. We always need to back the blue. It's important at this very, very tragic week here in Pennsylvania. The party is changing, and I think we owe Donald Trump for that. Donald Trump has done a tremendous job of reaching out and bringing in voters that never came to the Republican Party before. Blue-collar workers. It was funny, in 2016, when I was going around and working for our Senate candidates, Donald Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, and I was talking to some of the building trade groups, private labor groups, and they'd all say to me, well, look, we're all for Hillary at the management level, but all our workers are voting for Donald Trump. And so no one has reached out to get new voters like Donald J. Trump did, and we owe him a lot of thanks for that. And he did the same thing in the minority community as well. Hispanics and African Americans. And it's important that we do that. And it's important we not just reach out on election day. It's important we actually roll up our sleeves and get involved in our community. I don't live in Philadelphia, but you know what? Safety in Philadelphia is really important. And so that's why I called for Larry Krasner's impeachment. I believe his policies are directly responsible for the lawlessness that goes on in the city of Philadelphia today. And I think a trial in the House and the Senate would be a perfect way to put those George Soros policies on record. Let's let the people of Pennsylvania, people of this country, see what those policies are doing and what's happened to our great city of Philadelphia because of Larry Krasner. And so it's important that we get involved in our communities. That's why I'm for school choice. That doesn't really help my area a lot. I mean, I don't have a lot of parochial schools. I have some, but I don't have a lot in central Pennsylvania. But in our cities, we need parochial schools. We need in those failing school districts to have opportunities for parents, to empower parents to be able to get involved in their kids' education and pick the right environment, whether it be the public school, whether it be a charter school, whether it be a parochial school. Let's empower parents. You know, education is not about the school, it's about the child. And when we empower parents in those communities, we're reaching out as well. So we can't just be on election year saying we want to reach out to other areas to get their support. We got to do it every day. Every day by promoting policies that gives people a living wage, that gives parents more ability to find the education for their child that works best. I think that's how we continue to grow the party. I've done that as a leader in the Senate and will continue to do that as governor.
Thank you, Jake. Next question comes from Jennifer, and we're going to go back up the hill here and go to Mr. Corman again. So, Jennifer, question.
Yes, Senator Corman, let's stay on the theme of education. West Virginia just did a wonderful thing. They turned all state education funding and put it in an account to go directly to the children, and they no longer fund the system. My question to you is, will you agree to advocate for that and get that to your desk as governor? And if so, you're currently in leadership in the legislature, would you agree to champion that now as well? And how will you get it to your desk?
Absolutely. 2012, I voted and we passed school vouchers out of the Senate. The only time school vouchers were ever passed in the legislature, even when Tom Ridge was governor and wanted to get it done, he couldn't get it out of either chamber. We got it out of the Senate in 2012. We've constantly voted for and improved the Educational Improvement Tax Credit, which does give scholarships to low-income parents so that they can find the appropriate place, as I said earlier, for their child to go to school, which is so important. We have to empower parents. That is the most important part of an education is parental involvement. And parental involvement knows where best their children will succeed. And so we need to empower them to make the best decisions, whether it's being involved in the curriculum at the public school. You know, we voted a bill in the Senate that would make every school district put their curriculum online. You know, the House passed it as well. Unfortunately, you know, the governor vetoed it, of course. I'll sign that bill because I do believe, you know, our public schools are still obviously extremely important. And we as parents, I have 2 children in the school, need to know what's being taught in our schools. We need to approve what's being taught in our school and be part of that decision process. And so we'll do that, but we have to give parents the best option. Look, my kids, I have 1 daughter in college and I have 2 in high school, 2 boys in high school. And they do well in my public school. I'm very happy with the Bellefonte Area School District, and my kids have all far exceeded what their father ever did educationally. But that's my children. Every school district's different, every parent's different, every child's different. And I will, as a governor, lean in on this issue. I mean, this is going to be a priority because ultimately, you know, freedom is the cornerstone of this election. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But to have true freedom, you have to have economic security. And to have economic security, you got to be able to have the educational background to get a job. And when we leave a generation of students uneducated, well, then they're never really truly free because they're relying on government. And so we have to do what we can as policymakers to empower parents. That was the winning message for Governor Youngkin. I think that's the winning message for the Republican Party because it's not just Republican Party, it spans out past that. This is what we need to do, and as governor, I will lean in. You know, this year, Senate Bill 1, which we have in the Senate, was Scott Martin's bill, which was to highly increase the EITC spending. And so this is something that's a priority for the Senate. It'll be the priority for me as governor. We will lean in and make sure parents have the final say on their child's education.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Albert, and it's for Joe Gale.
Mr. Gale, in July 2020, Penn State University's Liberal Arts College posted a tweet that affirmed its commitment to viewpoint diversity, saying that along with welcoming diverse students of all kind, dear conservative students, your viewpoints are important. After an online backlash, the university deleted the tweet. Academic bias, self-censorship, and echo chambers have become endemic, including in Pennsylvania's state-funded universities. As governor, what would you do to promote freedom of thought and ensure that Pennsylvania's tax dollars are being spent to educate children and students rather than indoctrinate them?
If you notice, when we give Democrats a majority in government, they ram down our throats radical liberalism, wokeism, cancel culture, and the pendulum has shifted so far to the left where God and conservative beliefs are considered controversial because we have weak Republicans that are afraid to champion common sense conservatism and conservative values and principles. And what you need is a conservative with a backbone. And particularly when it comes to education and the freedom of thought and speech, school choice is a must. We must have school choice. And in Harrisburg, they've been talking about for decades, and we never see results. And as your next governor, I will get school choice done, by holding the Republicans and the legislature accountable to do it. And the reality is, because of gerrymandering, the way the district maps are drawn, the Republicans will maintain control of the state Senate and state House. So we need a Republican governor at that bully pulpit holding them accountable to pass things such as school choice. We need voucher systems where the dollars follow the child to a school of their choice, whether it's private, parochial, homeschool, cyber school, charter schools. We need to generate that competition. It will improve the quality of education. But instead, we have spineless, Republicans included, in Harrisburg, that cater to the PSEA, the teachers union. And again, look at the campaign finance reports, you'll see all the donations. And as governor, that's something I can directly change. And I would use that bully pulpit as my governorship to hold the Republicans accountable. And when I push for things like school choice, I know going into that scenario, all the Democrats are going to be against me. I already know that. And I also know that a significant amount of weak Republicans will also drag their feet and resist it because they're worried about missing out on that donation from the teachers union. And when they drag their feet, I'm going to call them out by name publicly and also support primary challenges against them. And I have the ability to do that because, once again, I was never created by the establishment system. And I can do what's best for the taxpayers and families of Pennsylvania. And I would use that bully pulpit, for example, to have a press conference and say, I want school choice done now. I don't want to wait till the end of my term. We need it now. And when they drag their feet, I'll have two poster boards, a list of all the legislators that are resisting it, and then another board with all the donations from the teachers union. And I'm going to say every single one of these individuals needs to be primaried. We need them out of office. We need to shape up or get it right. I have the ability to do that to my own party. The other candidates don't. And again, that's the difference between me and all the others. We know liberals resist the conservative agenda. We need Republicans with a backbone that actually deliver us results. And whether it's Pat Toomey on the federal level, the former governor Tom Corbett on the state level, or the despicable state legislature we've had for decades in Harrisburg, they let us down. I will not let you down as the next governor.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Jennifer, with our next question for Charlie Gerow.
Mr. Gerow, many people in this audience and have talked about that they want a fighter. They want someone that is going to stand up to them, stand up to the special interest, and stand up to the government sector unions. And they want someone that has proven that and has shown that. I understand you worked for the Reagan administration, but that was 40 plus years ago. So what record do you have to show that you can go out and fight on behalf of the people and that you show that you'll stand for the values that they believe in?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that you don't have to go to my campaign finance report to find out what I've taken from the teachers union. It's stacked up right here on the floor. And second of all, I don't know who he's talking about when he says the other candidates have kissed the ring. I've never kissed anybody's ring, and I won't start now. My tenure with President Reagan wasn't 40 years ago. I worked with him for over 25 years, including the arrangements for his funeral. And I'm very proud to have the endorsement of his son, Michael Reagan, in this campaign. And if you look again at what we've done, we're here today at the PLC. The history of that organization is pretty simple. I'm one of the founders of the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference. Its very name came from my mouth in the first instance. I fought through the years for our values. Today, I'm the vice chairman of CPAC. You know we're leading the fight across the nation every single day for the conservative values that we share. When we had our first PLC, we had three main speakers. One of them was Bob Walker, who you all know has been a fighter for conservative values as a congressman from Lancaster and Chester counties. Bob Walker has endorsed me in this campaign. One of the other speakers from Harrisburg originally, Newt Gingrich, the former Speaker of the House. Newt Gingrich has endorsed me in this race. Thank you. The endorsement that I really would love to have is yours. Because if you want a fighter, look at what I've been doing over the course of the last number of years, not just as vice chairman of CPAC, but in the media every single day. I was on CBS 21, the Harrisburg CBS affiliate, for over 20 years. My job there was to stand up for conservative values and conservative principles. And I did it constantly, consistently, heartily, and with a smile on my face. And in the private sector, I've done exactly the same thing. I took the heart of the fight directly to the liberal Democrats. When Josh Shapiro announced his candidacy, I called on him to resign. It took my brethren and sisters in this campaign a long time to come around to joining me in the call for Josh Shapiro to resign. Most of them now have. A couple haven't. But I believe there's something fundamentally wrong with people taking taxpayer paychecks to try to move up while our people and our jobs are moving out. Thank you. I've taken the fight directly to Josh Shapiro. I'll continue to do it. I will do it with success. I'll do it with ardor, and I'll do it as a winning candidate in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gerow. Albert with a question now for Bill McSwain.
Mr. McSwain, in Pennsylvania, there are currently 108 men on death row. On this list are serial killers, murderers, cop killers, child rapists. And each in that number, 108, represents a family of a victim waiting for justice. But the last execution in Pennsylvania was in 1999 when the defendant waived his last appeals. And our current governor issued a moratorium on the death penalty when he began office in 2015, which is decidedly not the role of the governor. As governor, what will you do to bring justice to these 100-plus cases?
Those cases are heartbreaking, and those victims deserve justice. And as governor, I absolutely would enforce the death penalty. When the death penalty is instituted, it is a jury of the defendant's peers who decide that that is warranted. And who is the governor to then step in and act like a king to say that we're not going to carry out that lawful constitutional sentence? That is an affront to public safety. That is an affront to victims. That is an affront to families. And it is shameful that Governor Wolf has done that. So absolutely, I will enforce the death penalty. The death penalty not only deserves to be administered in the most heinous cases, but I would say in every case, for example, where a law enforcement officer is murdered. People need to know that if they are going to point a gun or are they going to threaten the lives of a law enforcement officer, that they are going to die for that if that law enforcement officer perishes. And they deserve to know that a governor is going to enforce that. And they also deserve a governor who stands with them. They deserve a governor who has law enforcement experience. They deserve a governor who stands side to side with the police. They deserve a governor like me who's dedicated their life to public safety. That is what those families and those victims deserve, and they will get it. And I will make sure that public safety absolutely is job number one of the Pennsylvania state government. Because if we don't have public safety, all of our other rights don't amount to a hill of beans. The first civil right is the right to live in a safe neighborhood. That's what I preached over and over as U.S. Attorney. That's what I fought for every single day. My job was to stand up for the law-abiding citizens and to stand with law enforcement. I did it as President Trump's U.S. Attorney. I will do it as your governor.
Thank you, Mr. McSwain. We stay with Mr. McSwain and a question from Jennifer Stefano. Jennifer?
Mr. McSwain, many of the people in this room and frankly in the Pennsylvania electorate have lost confidence and have concerns about our election system. And it's particularly disappointing for many here because it was Republicans that voted to allow mail-in balloting and that helped create the chaos that we saw going into 2020. So I ask you first, would you repeal that law? And what else would you do to protect voter integrity?
Absolutely. We need to repeal the no-excuse mail-in balloting, the disastrous Act 77, and we need to institute voter ID. That's where it starts. And in order to do that, first of all, we want to do that because we want everybody to have faith in our elections. Right now, people all over the Commonwealth do not have faith in elections. And part of it is because we have an unconstitutional system, literally an unconstitutional system, that unfortunately the legislature voted in. I did not make that vote. I am not a career politician. I have never run for office before. What we need is a conservative outsider, somebody with conservative principles, somebody like me to come in and do the things in Harrisburg that need to be done to give everybody faith in our elections and to also promote our other conservative ideals. And I'll also tell you this, I am the only prosecutor in this race. I am the only law enforcement official in this race, as I've already described. I have prosecuted voter fraud. In Philadelphia, as U.S. Attorney, I exposed a voter fraud conspiracy in South Philadelphia, where literally the judge of elections was going into the voting booth when he thought that the coast was clear and just ringing up votes. There's even a name for it. They call it ringing up votes in South Philly. Voting over and over and over and over again, as fast as they could, when he thought the coast was clear. Well, there's a problem with that. The votes that are registered on a machine are not going to match the voter rolls of the sign-in sheets. And we exposed that fraud. We prosecuted it. People went to jail for it. And I'm the only person that has a record who was running in this election, the only person who has a record of fighting back against voter fraud. And I certainly did not and never would have voted for Act 77. So one of the first things that I would want to do as governor is repeal that unconstitutional act, institute voter ID, give all of you and everybody around the Commonwealth confidence in elections. That's how we increase participation in democracy, and that's how we fix that problem.
Thank you. Albert Eisenberg with a question for Charlie Gerow.
Mr. Gerow, could you tell me what your campaign plan is specifically to pick up the independents and conservative and moderate Democrats that you'll need to win in November?
You bet. And first, let's be clear, folks. This campaign is not about who's the best prosecutor. Because I got news for you. Everybody in this room is a better prosecutor than Josh Shapiro. And all of you have tried as many or more cases than he has. He's out using taxpayer finances to bring in additional help from the outside in an office that has several hundred attorneys to try cases on election integrity. That's disgusting on every level. And let me tell you, this is why I'm able to get independents and Democrats to come to our team this fall. And I've already done it. Former Democrat state legislators are calling me every single day saying, we want to join your campaign, we want to endorse you, we want to fight for you because we know what Josh Shapiro is. And if you want specific names, I'll give you just a couple. Ted Harhigh in Western Pennsylvania and Pete Daly, also from Western Pennsylvania. Two conservative Democrats who know what Josh Shapiro is all about. And look what we did in the Trump election a couple of years ago. Donald Trump got more minority votes than any Republican candidate for president since Richard Nixon in 1960. And I can continue on that. And let me tell you one reason why. Although I've lived in Pennsylvania longer than any of the candidates on this stage, I wasn't born here. I was born in a slum in southern Brazil. My birth mother realized that she couldn't take care of me. And so she took me to a little mission and asked for me to be put up for adoption. And she asked only one thing of those people there. She wanted me to come to the United States of America because here she thought I might be able to learn how to read. And by the way, there's a sequel to that before I tell you about being the first Latino to run for governor of Pennsylvania. And as such, somebody that can go to places where Republicans haven't typically gone and where conservatives haven't consistently been welcome. And the sequel is this. When I told that story at my announcement for governor, I immediately had some hotshot young reporter run up to me and demand to know, why were you born in Brazil? This is the media. So I thought for just a second and I said, well, I wanted to be close to my mother. And that's how we'll take on the media. We'll do it with a smile. We'll do it because our issues, our values, hope, growth, economic opportunity for all, which are at the core of my campaign, along with freedom and individual liberty, that's how you get Democrats, independents, and that's how you win in November.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Appreciate it. Our next question is from Jennifer for Mr. Joe Gale. Jennifer?
Yes. Joe, tell me, would you support decriminalizing recreational marijuana like many other states are now doing? And if so, or if not, explain why.
I do not believe we should have legal recreational marijuana. Marijuana is a gateway drug to other dangerous drugs. And once you start that ball moving, it's going to lead to legalizing the next drug, following the next drug. We need law and order, and drugs begin at the southern border. That's where it pours across our southern border, and we need to stop it there. That's the #1 root of the drug epidemic that the country is facing, as well as Pennsylvania. It has to stop at the border. And when we elected a pro-border security president with Donald Trump, that was the time to get the border wall done. But he had a Republican Congress and Senate that didn't cooperate with him the way they should have. And one of them was our U.S. Senator, Pat Toomey, who actually voted against funding the border wall. So here in Pennsylvania, we have 2 U.S. senators, Bob Casey, a Democrat, and a Republican, in name only, Pat Toomey. And Casey tells us he's for open borders, let drugs pour in, illegals pour in. Pat Toomey, our Republican, should be in favor of border security, but he voted against funding that border wall. So in that scenario, we totally disagree with Bob Casey. But the bigger problem is Pat Toomey. And I'm the only type of candidate, again on this stage, that can hit the sitting U.S. Senator from my state. Because I have no allegiance to the Republican Party establishment swamp. And they let us down. And I contribute the drug problem to weak Republicans. So I will be a conservative, common sense governor that backs law and order and will hold Republicans accountable in state government and federal government as well. Because that's where we need to cooperate. That's how much of a problem the drug epidemic is in Pennsylvania. And I have a record of backing the blue. Back in 2020, Center City, Philadelphia looked like a third world country war zone with all the looting, the arson, torching police cars, and they were getting away with it. No one said anything. And I was the first elected official in the nation to speak the truth about Black Lives Matter. And I took a lot of heat for it. And I called them radical left-wing hate groups that are perpetrators of domestic terror. And that's exactly what they are, and I was not afraid to say it. And I took a lot of heat for it. I had 4 protests in front of my house, over 500 protesters. The police had to barricade the whole perimeter of the property. I had celebrities calling me for me to resign. I faced impeachment charges in the state legislature, and I would not back down. I backed the blue. So that's a very important component to having drugs off our streets. We need to support law enforcement. It begins at the border, and also with our state troopers and all the municipality police departments we have across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Albert with a question for Jay Corman.
Mr. Corman, I asked a similar question in the prior session, but we'll get it again. Republicans are currently outpacing Democrats nationally on the generic ballot and in specific issues where we lead on inflation, controlling crime, controlling the border. The issues that Republicans have the least confidence from American voters are healthcare and the environment. Could you name a policy specifically in either one of those subjects that you think Republicans can lead on that you would like to get done?
100%, and we have. Look, the governor's trying to get us in this regional greenhouse gas lines. That would be perceived as, quote, pro-environment. It's actually not correct at all. By using our great resource of natural gas, we're actually improving the environment and improving our emissions here in Pennsylvania. Perfect example, the state legislature led Senator Johnny Dechek and myself and got a tax credit to inspire someone to locate a company in northeastern Pennsylvania to use the natural gas there. We were successful, and the Cerro company has agreed to come, and they're going to convert natural gas into gasoline. $6 billion investment, 4,000 construction jobs, hundreds of permanent jobs and downstream jobs, largest economic development project in northeastern Pennsylvania history. And by converting natural gas into gasoline, it's much more environmentally friendly. See, Tom Wolf's up in an ideological world of liberalism where he just hates all fossil fuels. Well, I hate to break it to him, is my folks here at the PMA, I know are here in the room, and we had a hearing this week on Reggie. One of the liberals from Philadelphia was going crazy, and they tweeted out that her cosmetics were all created by natural gas. And so that's the point you got to point out to these people. We're not going to survive without fossil fuels. And so it's environmentally appropriate for us to be able to use our natural gas and to build here in the United States. We do things far better environmentally here in the United States and Pennsylvania than they do in the Far East. If we're not relying on Putin's oil or the Far East manufacturing, we'll improve the environment for this country, this planet, which is what we should be concerned about, the planet, in a tremendous way by bringing industry back to Pennsylvania, bringing it back to the United States. And that's what has been the platform of my campaign, is bringing jobs into Pennsylvania. And quickly on your healthcare, perfect example of healthcare. When I first got in the legislature, Highmark was the behemoth of the West, right? They had cornered the market, and they had all of the, basically all the insurance there. Well, then all of a sudden, UPMC came along and said, you know what, we're going to take you on. And that competition drove prices down, and the UPMC got to an equal footing with Highmark, and they're battling it out. And of course, Josh Shapiro didn't like that, right? He was going to take them to court, and he was going to try to stop them. What isn't the fun part about watching TV is watching those car insurance commercials, right? You see all those car insurance commercials, Aflac, and not Aflac, but Geico and all the others. And you see the Aflac commercial. You see all the other type insurance commercials. What don't you see? Health insurance. Why?
30 seconds.
Because there's no competition. There's no competition out there. If we inspire Republican principles like UPMC and Highmark to battle it out to keep prices low, as we see in southwestern Pennsylvania compared to other places, we will do well. Don't be afraid. Be a conservative leader. Don't be afraid of the liberals. Don't be afraid of the liberal media. Stand up. Articulate the process. Our arguments win the day because our arguments are for the people at their dining room table who are trying to figure out how to pay their budget.
Thank you, Mr. Corman. We stay with Mr. Corman right now, and a question from Jennifer. Jennifer?
Senator Corman, do you support legislation to get the Pennsylvania state government fully out of the liquor business and turn it over completely to private retail? And if so, what will you do as governor versus what you do as a leader now in the legislature?
The quick answer is yes, 100%. And we've passed bills in the legislature like that. Unfortunately, I know as a legislator, you get to take a lot of the criticism of the last 20 years. 16 of the last 20 years, we've had a Democrat governor. And so, it's not easy to get Democrat governors to sign certain things. And so we've put things on their desk. We put full privatization. Mike Terzai led the charge in the House back in early days of Wolf. And unfortunately, he vetoed it. But even with that, we were able to work within the process to get more of the wine and beer out into the marketplace better than it was before. And so now Pennsylvania is much better than it used to be because we were able to keep pushing that issue. We need to get a Republican governor. I think any one of us on this stage or the previous group would sign that bill. And so it's important first and foremost to get a Republican governor. And then a Republican governor knows how to work with the legislature to make it happen. There's no reason, I go down to other states. I was down in Florida. I saw the Total Wines place. It's like, wow, this is like a mecca, for wine and spirits. It's all right there. It's crazy that can't happen in Pennsylvania. And so, yes, I'm 100% supportive of it. I will do everything in my power as a legislature, as a governor, to make it happen. It's important that we get government out of that business. I think financially over the long haul, we can do better as well. And so 100% I would be for that and do everything with my power, my skills to make it happen.
Thank you. Albert with a question for Joe Gale. Albert?
Mr. Gale, a few common sense statements that seem to have been forgotten on the left and the right recently. One, tweeting is not the same as doing something. And two, politics is additive and not subtractive. What are you going to do to expand beyond your coalition as somebody who often presents as a little bit prickly and easily willing to torch what you call establishment Republicans to start?
Well, amen. I'm going to torch away. And that's why I'm a two-term Montgomery County Commissioner. And that's why I'm doing very well in this primary race for for governor of Pennsylvania. Because they can exclude me from debate stages, they can exclude me from polling, but I have connected directly with the people, Republican primary voters of this state, at unprecedented levels. I do a series of meet and greets every single day called A Cup of Joe. It's a catchy phrase for a coffee clutch. And I literally go into the homes across Pennsylvania and meet with people one-on-one. And I developed a very loyal following that's second to none. and I educate people on the behind-the-curtain view of all the tactics that take place in Pennsylvania politics, including the corruption and collusion between the Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment, because there's a lot of it, and I believe Pennsylvania has more of it than any other state in the country. So I am blessed to have the people behind me. I have from day one when I first ran for county commissioner, and I have the people behind me in this campaign for governor. So I have a proven ability of putting people before politics, and that's the only coalition I'm worried about building, because we know what coalition building means in Harrisburg. It means playing footsies with the lobbyists and the donors and the special interest groups that are looking for kickbacks of our tax dollars. I have no strings attached, and I have the ability to advance a conservative agenda, and I can actually get the liquor stores privatized. The time to do it was when we had Tom Corbett with the Republican legislature. Why was it not done then? Because the state stores have state employees and they have a public sector union. And for political expedience, they cater more to that union instead of getting government out of the liquor business, which it has no business being in. They let us down. I will hold those type of Republicans accountable. And we have plenty of them in Harrisburg. And as long as I have the people behind me, that's all I care about. I don't care about having the Republican Party establishment's endorsement, any other endorsement. I want your endorsement and your family's endorsement on May 17th. Because that's what counts, and that's what gives me the power, the freedom, and the independence to say the things I do on the stage. So if I sound like I'm a flamethrower, that's what I am. I always have been, and we desperately need that in Harrisburg. And I will use the bully pulpit of the governorship to do just that. We need to burn it down and rebuild. It's broken. And I'm the future of conservatism in Pennsylvania. I'm the youngest commissioner in the history of Montgomery County. I believe I'd be the youngest governor of Pennsylvania. We desperately need young blood that's not controlled. And I am totally uncontrollable, and that's what separates me from all the others.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Jennifer with a question for Charlie Gerow. Jennifer?
Charlie, can you lay out what you believe your vision for Pennsylvania is going to be and how you would intend to work with the legislature, how you would use your bully pulpit? As we've talked about, there have been Republican governors and Republican legislatures, and things just simply didn't get done. But how would you convince people that you could work with a Republican legislature and actually achieve the vision that you have for Pennsylvania?
The vision question is important, and before I address it, let me apologize to you for the vision you have of my socks. Lou Barletta was on the other group. He likes to point out my incredible bad taste in wardrobe, but these are Villanova socks. They're playing for the national championship this week, so please join me for the Wildcats. But the question about vision for Pennsylvania's future is so vitally important. And the ability to get things done is at the core of what our next governor is going to be confronted with. I have a record of working to build coalitions, winning coalitions for the people of Pennsylvania. Let me give you a prime example of where things have fallen apart in recent years. Our tax policy is anathema. If you tax something, you get less of it. And think about what we tax in Pennsylvania. Our business taxes are annualized at the highest rate of any state in the nation. Even Tom Wolf, in a fit of lucidity, says that our business taxes are too high. We have a Republican legislature. They'll tell you the same thing. And what has happened over the past quarter of a century to our business taxes? Nothing. I'm somebody that will put my shoulder to the wheel and work with the legislature. I mean, you can't come in as somebody that has excoriated the General Assembly time after time, told them what scumbags they are, et cetera, and expect to get things done. We saw that previously. It doesn't work. And so the ability to work with people centered on principle, not compromising principle, but working to get the art of the possible for the people of Pennsylvania. And that is my vision of less taxes. None of my neighbors are telling me my life would be a little bit better if only my taxes were a little higher. We've chased jobs and opportunity out of our state. as a result of our high taxes, of less regulation, of a more collaborative system rather than a punitive one, where permits don't take forever and a day to get. And third, an end to public corruption, because job creators, and I am one as a small business person, job creators are not coming to a state where they believe they have to, quote unquote, pay to play. We've got to put an end to public corruption. And so my vision is one of hope, of economic growth, of opportunity, not of result, but of opportunity to succeed for every single Pennsylvanian. And that's what I will fight for every single day.
Thank you, Mr. Gerow. Albert, with our final question for Bill McSwain.
Mr. McSwain, could you name one or a few politicians outside of Pennsylvania who excite you and who you might emulate as a Governor McSwain?
Sure. I'm a big fan of Ron DeSantis. Probably a lot of people here are. And I'll say this about Ron DeSantis. You can Google this if you like afterwards. He and I have almost the exact same resume. The same educational institutions, the same military service. We have almost the exact same background, both prosecutors. And so I would love to be the version of Ron DeSantis here in Pennsylvania and do the kind of things that he has done in Florida. And that brings me to this point. We need to win. We need to win this fall. We can't do all the things that we dream about doing as Republicans unless we actually win. And there are, frankly, it's a hard thing to say, but I think I have to say it. There are some candidates in this race where if they are our nominee, that would be the functional equivalent of us blowing ourselves up. We need to have a nominee who can beat Josh Shapiro in the fall. I think I'm uniquely situated to do that. My campaign is gaining all sorts of steam. We've had lots of support just in the last couple weeks. I was endorsed by Kathy Rapp, one of the leading voices in the House, pro-life voices in the House. I was endorsed by Jason Ritchie, who was running for governor in Pittsburgh, and he decided, you know what, I don't see a path to victory, but I'm gonna get behind somebody who can beat Josh Shapiro. And now he's actually campaigning for me in the western part of the state. I was endorsed by Sean Parnell, who is a great patriot and a combat veteran. I was just endorsed by Jeff Picola, the head of the York County Republican Party, and approved by the York County Republicans. And there's gonna be lots of more endorsements to come. And we have to create a contrast with Shapiro. I provide that contrast. I'm a conservative. He's a liberal. I'm an outsider. He's a career politician. I love freedom. He likes mandates and government control. I'm a real prosecutor that has dedicated my life to public safety. As Charlie said earlier, Shapiro's a pretend prosecutor. I'm a United States Marine. He's not. We need to create that contrast, and we need to win in November. We can't treat the primary like a suicide mission. Let's elect somebody who's going to win in November. Vote for me. I will get it done, and then we'll do all the things that we want to accomplish as Republicans, and I look forward to that bright, optimistic future.
Thank you, Mr. McSwain. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at our final round, and they're going to have closing comments here. So we're going to have 2 minutes for each closing comment, and we'll start again with Bill McSwain.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need a governor who is a conservative outsider. We need someone with the conservative principles and is going to fight for those conservative principles, but someone who is not a career politician. The career politician carousel has to end. We need to get off of that merry-go-round, and we need a conservative outsider like me to go to Harrisburg and do the things that need to be done to serve all of your interests. And as I've told you before, I'm a U.S. Marine. Marines know how to fight. I think we could use a Marine in the governor's office. And my battalion that I served in was the 1st Battalion, 4th Marine Infantry Regiment in Camp Pendleton, California. And I was deployed to the Persian Gulf region in the 90s. And we had a motto in that battalion. The motto was, whatever it takes. That's my life mentality, whatever it takes. And as governor, I will do whatever it takes to get our economy moving, to cut taxes, to reduce red tape, to free our people and free our businesses, to create jobs, whatever it takes to get our energy industry going, to turn on the spigot for natural gas, whatever it takes for school choice, to provide educational opportunity for all of our children, to make education a gateway to a better life for all of our Commonwealth's children, whatever it takes to have public safety so that everybody lives in a safe neighborhood, and whatever it takes to bring election integrity to our state. I will do all those things because I will bring that mission-oriented attitude of a United States Marine. And as frustrating as it has been for you for the last 2 years and the last 8 years under Tom Wolf, help is on the way. We are only one election away from transforming our state. Let's do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McSwain. Charlie Gerow.
You know, we all love Ron DeSantis, and my resume is a little bit different. I never went to Harvard, and frankly, I'm pretty proud of that. But I will tell you this. Here's where I do have something in common with Ron DeSantis that you didn't hear about a minute ago. I've always been a Republican. I never voted for Al Gore or Bill Clinton. And so that's where I put my stand as a conservative leader for many, many years here in Pennsylvania and across the country. From my days with Ronald Reagan to the vice chairmanship of CPAC, which I currently have, and by the way, the endorsement of Matt and Mercy Schlapp and a whole lot of others that you know, I've fought for our principles and our core convictions every day, and I will continue to do that. I'm running for governor because I believe we're in a battle for the heart and soul of this nation. It's a fight we cannot afford to lose. It's a fight that I'm willing to take every day so that we can turn away from the big government, overspending, regulating, edicts, mandates, etc. of Josh Shapiro and Tom Wolf, and choose a future of hope and growth, of individual liberty and personal freedom, which really are at the core of who we are. Last night I was at a debate. Some of my friends on this stage weren't, but I had somebody walk up to me and say, "Have you read the Pennsylvania Constitution?" I was proud to say yes, and many
30
times.
seconds.
And I've taken the fight for the Constitution against Act 77, which was on its face unconstitutional. I've taken the
20
fight
seconds.
directly to Josh Shapiro, calling for his resignation from the first day he announced his candidacy for governor. I will take the fight to the Democrats this
10
fall.
seconds.
Most important, I'll take the fight for hope, growth, economic opportunity, and personal freedom.
Thank you, Mr. Gerow. Mr. Joe Gale, final comment.
I can't tell you one single good thing the Republicans have delivered for us in Harrisburg, but they did give us 50 days of no excuse mail-in voting, the longest vote-by-mail period of time in the entire nation, Act 77. And it was passed unanimously by every single Republican state senator, including Doug Mail-in Mastriano and Jay Corman, who's the president of the state senate right next to me. They passed it. And in my opinion, anyone that voted for that disastrous legislation should be disqualified from holding any office, let alone being promoted to a higher office. And if it weren't for me exposing the truth about Act 77, election integrity would not be a topic on the stage today. Because Act 77 was a deliberate act of sabotage where the Republicans in the legislature colluded with Democrat Governor Tom Wolf. And the trade-off was 50 days of no excuse mail-in voting for the removal of straight ticket voting in the general election. Because the Republicans know that removal of straight ticket voting selfishly benefits Republicans down ballot. And all they care about is they're keeping their seats safe seats. And in return, it sabotaged the presidential election. And Act 77 is the reason why Donald Trump is not in office today. And the last thing we need is to nominate someone like Doug Mail-in Mastriano as a Republican nominee for governor, because the issue of Act 77 goes away. The guy is a total fraud. I expose him relentlessly. He's a master manipulator.
No.
And
Gale.
ladies and gentlemen, I hear some cheering and I also hear some booing. That means I'm talking the truth, the uncomfortable truth that they don't want you to know.
Mr. Gale.
Doug
10 seconds.
Mastriano is part of the problem. I hold him accountable.
Please.
And I am the candidate to win in November because I can beat Josh
And your
Shapiro.
time-
I come from his
Your time
hometown.
is up. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please, please. Mr. Corman, final comment.
Thank you. Great to follow. First of all, thank you for having me. If you want to know more about my campaign, please go to cormanforpa.com. You know, when Tom Wolf, what inspired me to run for governor is when Tom Wolf renewed his emergency declaration after the first 90 days of COVID. And he gave a speech about it. And he said, you know, we're in a different time now. We got to think differently. He said, you know, we're going to have to wear masks. We're going to have to social distance. The government is going to do everything it can to make you feel comfortable. You know, what he's telling you is he wants you to feel comfortable from the government taking your civil liberties away. Not on my last breath will I feel comfortable giving up my civil liberties. You know, we talk about governors who we like, and certainly Ron DeSantis is a great one. Kristi Noem is another great one, governor of South Dakota. And I got the chance to speak with her, and what she said was, you know, I didn't do the shutdowns, and other Republican governors did. She didn't do any shutdowns because she said, I didn't have the authority to do it, and I follow the Constitution. See, government uses fear to take away your rights. That's how they get it done, through fear. Tom Wolf peddled fear through us for the last 2 years. Look, I'm the president of the Senate, so arguably I have power, right? I mean, I'm next to the governor, probably the next most powerful person in state government. I'm not running for governor. I'm not running for the re-election legislature. I'm retiring from the legislature. I'm not running for governor to have power. I'm running for governor to protect your power. You, the people. That's why my campaign slogan is for the people. You, the people. And it wasn't cliche. Up to the last 2 years, we saw it firsthand. So I'm running for governor to make sure we protect your freedoms. Protect your freedoms, and so no Republican or Democrat governor can ever do what Tom Wolf did. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Corman. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our forum. I think this is a great appropriate time to thank all these people who tried to serve. Thank you so much for being a good audience. Bill, thanks so much. Good to have you aboard.
That's great. Great questions.